Greetings and peace to you all. My name is Umi. Thank you all for joining me for another video. Thank you to everyone who has liked, shared, subscribed. You've booked a session, made donations, you've become a patron, where I will be sharing exclusive articles and videos to those who are connected with me on Patreon. And everyone, again, who's made donations, I appreciate all of you for supporting this channel. So today I wanted to delve a little bit into spiritual hygiene and why this is so important. It's not a suggestion, it's not a recommendation. This is critical. This is fundamental for those of you who consider yourselves spiritual seekers, healers. You're on your path or journey to awakening. You're seeking to know thyself through any means necessary. There could be certain risk and dangers that you want to be aware of that isn't talked about very often, especially on platforms like YouTube, where everyone is just, speaking and sharing in order to stay relevant. Oftentimes with those of you who give video recommendations, it's not that I don't necessarily want to speak on these things. It's just, honest to goodness, the spirit that I obey that gives me instructions as to what to say and when to say it in its appropriate time. I listen to that. I listen to my intuition first before I immediately respond to talking about other subjects. So I will definitely get to those videos, but this seems to be important and relevant at this time. What is spiritual hygiene? The word that came to mind when I was taking a few notes for this video was gluttony. And I was like, I think that's one of the 7 deadly sins. And many of us, when we think of gluttony, we think of overeating. Now, gluttony can be directed at any area of life where we overindulge, where we overconsume. So all of you have heard, the phrase food for thought. That meaning we can overindulge and overconsume in food that stimulates our mind. I've mentioned many times, recently, about ensuring you're not watching certain content because it's entertaining, because you're bored, because it's just food for your thoughts, and you're not actually assimilating these things. You're not allowing it to digest. You're not applying it in your life. There is no need to be in a rush on your spiritual journey, especially those of you who are just embarking on an awakening. You're going through all types of emotional flux. You're not sure what to believe. You're seeking out information. You're just watching content and taking in so much. And the thing, the challenge or the danger with YouTube is that there are a lot of people who are just regurgitating information they've read online or they've heard. And so it's important that when I share content, I share a lot of experience. I share a lot of personal situations and experiences, not because I want to put all my business out on the internet, but because I'm seeking to gain the trust of some of those select souls who are really genuinely trying to figure life out. You really need someone who's just going to tell you what it is. And I always say, take what you need and discard the rest. My experience is unique to me, but perhaps what has happened on my journey can prevent someone from stumbling in some way or help them to gain clarity about their own path and their own psychological well-being. It's important that you use discernment and you recognize when you're overindulging or overconsuming. This is not to judge anyone. I'm in a personal year 7 myself. I've purchased a lot of books. It was like strange when I realized I'm in a personal year 7. It makes sense why I have this desire to study and read and, I'm gravitating to information. But I also know it's important for me to step back sometimes, be still, to not constantly gotta read, gotta know, gotta learn, because I'm not going to give myself the time to fully apply these things if I'm just looking for the next thing. I'll meditate later. I'll eat right later. I'll go out in nature when I feel like it. The weather's bad. And you keep putting on the back burner the foundational things, the critical things that will serve your spiritual growth and development and your spiritual maturity. Saturn in my 11th house. I'm always talking about spiritual maturity because Saturn is about patience. It's about mastery, self-mastery and self-discipline that only comes with time. It only comes with patience. It only comes with experience. And or what you learn from others, meaning your elders, meaning mentors, gurus, people who've been there, done that. You can learn from them, therefore bypass some of the long process. However, you have to be willing to listen. You have to be willing to take their counsel and advice Not in every case, but in terms when it seems most beneficial for your growth and development. So we don't want to be gluttonous. We don't want to overconsume and overeat. And I'm speaking of the spiritual food, of the content. So just be mindful of people who are boasting of their spiritual abilities, who are simply sharing, and regurgitating information or content because they know that there are a lot of thirsty souls out there, a lot of people who are coming online who are searching and seeking. I'm not here to judge. I'm just sharing this because I've been down that path of, wanting to know and seeking, but before you know it, you feel confused. You feel that you haven't really eaten anything of sustenance. It was all fast food, and before you know it, you're hungry again. So the real true food, the true sustenance, you got to let it sit for a minute. You have to pause. You have to integrate. You have to see how these things are playing out in real life. So spiritual hygiene is very important. We want to make sure that our thoughts are clean. We want to make sure that we are exhibiting the fruitage of the Spirit. This is not limited to any particular religion or religious doctrine. The fruitage of the Spirit, love and joy and peace and kindness, patience, faith, goodness, self-control. This applies to any soul. Every soul, anyone can exhibit these qualities that demonstrate they're operating on a higher frequency, that their soul is vibrating in alignment with the spiritual nature of God, the essence of God. I'm saying that you're operating in a higher frequency than the need and greed of just human desire, base desire, low vibrational entities and energies that linger all around us. So that's what your spiritual awakening and spiritual journey, if it's taught us nothing else, it's taught us the power and compassion that comes with vibing a little bit higher, really striving for those higher qualities. And spiritual hygiene is the only way in which we attain that. We're not going to attain these higher fruitages and qualities by constantly chasing and being thirsty and in a state of desperation. I'm desperate to know. I'm desperate to change my situation. I'm desperate to get unstuck. We don't want to be in a state of desperation. We want to be aware of our spiritual need, intuitively listen, receive what we need, and put it into practice. And that desperation falls away. It just becomes a work. It becomes a daily practice. It becomes a way of living. We fall, we stumble, we make mistakes. Sometimes we pick up debris and toxicity and things that we don't need, but we receive it as a lesson. Okay, I know I need to abstain from that. I know I need to not deal with that person. I know I need to stop eating this food. It's weighing me down. It's creating brain fog or what have you. So what we consume, not only with the spiritual food, but your entertainment, very important. What you're watching, what you're listening to. So I'm not here to preach about what you're going to watch for entertainment. Most of you, all of you are likely adults. You watch what you want to watch, but you have to pay attention to how you feel after you watch certain content. Your thoughts are disturbed. Your thoughts are unclean. So again, this can hint to pornography. This can hint to very violent content, but you're adults. You have to use discernment and determine what's best for you in terms of soul growth. What are you ready to let go of? Because when we let go of certain things, we make space for the new. When we clean out our vessel, clean out the internal world, we make way for the new paradigm, the new world, and how we envision things and see things. Our perception radically shifts, and it does affect our reality. So it's important that I make mention about our spiritual hygiene, also relating to our physical environment. Of course, many of you know the importance of maintaining a clean, wholesome environment. Abstaining from, violence and aggressive speech in your environment, making sure your space is organized the best you can. I know many of you are parents, you work, you have a life, and it's not always easy to have these perfectly balanced, clean, perfect homes. I get it, but when it comes to things like filth and trash and junk piling up and clutter and stuff that is obviously creating stress and tension in your life, you have to clear that out, because as above, so below. Whatever's happening for us in the mental plane and our thoughts and our spirit will manifest in our environment. You have to be utterly uncomfortable around clutter and junk and, triflingness in order to make changes. If you're comfortable in that space, if it doesn't bother you or you don't even notice it, then that could be what's going on within your spirit. And just like physical food we eat, where certain parasites or bacteria in the body can feed off of junk and sugar, and you're just feeding it and eating and not paying any attention to the fact that you're nourishing a parasite, we can have these spiritual attachments and parasites, if you will, within the body, within our spirit, that can be feeding off of unclean content, unclean material. So lastly, what I'll say, and I'll continue this discussion on Patreon. I'll be posting more on this subject to include articles for those of you who are interested. But lastly, what I wanted to share is to please, please, please be mindful of just how much you tune into tarot readings and horoscopes and, these forecasts, because it's saturated online. And I know that some of you are readers, some of you are astrologers. We all share what we share, but I would recommend, if you're someone you feel you need to tune in, or there's someone that you resonate with that is an astrologer or a reader, whatever, get what you need and kind of, maintain a bit of distance in terms of how attached you are to what's being shared, and developing these expectations and what you project into the future based off of what you heard. Your intuition has to be developed. And the more you spend time watching readings, jumping from one tarot reader to the next, every week, several times a week, every day, you have to pull cards and you watch cards being pulled and you tune into your horoscopes. And it is an overwhelming amount of information and spiritual, forecasting, that you can't necessarily develop your own intuition when we do that. Simply encouraging you and letting you know that there are certain dangers and risks if you're constantly tuning into occult or metaphysical content for the sake of entertainment and wanting to know and bouncing around. And definitely be careful about those who are, not presenting any warnings before they're encouraging people to do stuff. Because there are books out here that are telling people to go to the crossroads and go do this, and this ritual works, and try this. And because they may seem popular online, because they may seem like they know what they're talking about, I'm not saying they don't, I'm just saying exercise caution. What are you listening to that is a voice of reason from within? What are you listening to that is a true guiding force, that has never steered you wrong, or that has never led you to do something harmful or dangerous or toxic? Because the people outside that we're tuning into, from sometimes you don't know their spiritual hygiene. Some of you aren't adept at reading auras or knowing what people are into or what they practice. And so this, again, can be potentially dangerous, is that we don't necessarily know the intentions and the spiritual hygiene of others. Then we can miss out on the work that we need to be doing for ourselves. So maybe implement a spiritual routine of fasting from things that for you seem to be toxic, or, a distraction, or damaging, or confusing at times, readings that don't make sense. Like, maybe you need to pull away, take a break from it, but you'll do what works best for you. Continue your journal entries, continue to eat living foods as often as you can, fresh fruits and vegetables. Continue to put into practice the things you are learning. Be gentle with yourself. Be patient with yourself. The spirit and the fruitage of the spirit develops only by means of that type of self-care and compassion. If you don't have compassion and self-love and care and nurturing towards yourself, you damn sure are going to struggle in giving that support to others. So it's important you take care of your needs and your spiritual needs, and you're being gentle with yourself, and your internal dialogue expresses that. You're letting yourself know it's okay, picking yourself back up and getting back into your routine. So when you fall off or some time goes by, don't be too hard on yourself. There is support out there. So I'm going to shut the video off here. I thank you guys for tuning in. Please share your experiences with spiritual hygiene. What are some things you do? If there are particular rituals or practices that you do that have been beneficial for you. Again, I'm going to expound more on this topic on Patreon. So I hope to see many of you there. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until next time, peace.